Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
My heart sank as my sister Amanda passed a plain bread basket to my 10-year-old son. "We didn't order for your son," she said with a dismissive smile while her kids eagerly cut into their $100 steaks. The restaurant's chandelier light reflected off their sparkling water glasses, highlighting the stark difference in treatment. My father leaned forward, his retirement celebration apparently not meant for all family members. "You should have packed him something," he added with a shrug. I just smiled and quietly said, "Noted." Noah's eyes fell to the empty space in front of him, but he remained silent, used to this treatment from his aunt and grandfather. When the waiter came back moments later, I stood up and announced something that would change our family forever. I never thought I'd be a single dad at 34, but life rarely follows our plans. 3 years ago, my wife Jessica lost her battle with cancer, leaving me to raise our son Noah alone. The grief was overwhelming, but Noah needed me to be strong. Despite the challenges, we created a stable life together. I work as a middle school history teacher at Lincoln Middle, and while the pay isn't great, the schedule allows me to be present for Noah when he needs me most. My relationship with my sister Amanda has always been complicated. 2 years older than me, she married James, a finance executive, right after college. Their life in the suburbs with 2 perfect children, Zach and Emily, couldn't be more different from mine. Amanda never misses an opportunity to highlight that difference, from the vacations they take to the private schools her kids attend. Our father, Thomas, has always made his preference clear. Amanda was his golden child, the one who fulfilled his expectations by marrying well and projecting the image of success he valued. I chose a different path, following my passion for education rather than pursuing a more lucrative career. In his eyes, this made me the family disappointment. "Are you sure we should go tonight?" I asked Noah as he buttoned up his best dress shirt. The invitation to my father's retirement celebration had arrived 2 weeks ago, a formal card with gold embossing that screamed expensive. "Grandpa might be happy to see us this time," Noah replied with an optimism that made my chest tighten. At 10 years old, he still hoped for acceptance from a grandfather who barely acknowledged him. "You're right, buddy. Maybe tonight will be different." Our last family gathering had been Thanksgiving, where Amanda had seated Noah at a folding table in the corner, while her children enjoyed the main table with the adults. The memory still stung, but I wanted to believe people could change. As we drove to Bellamy's, one of the most upscale restaurants in town, I gave Noah a pep talk. "Remember, you're just as important as your cousins, regardless of how anyone treats you." His small nod told me he'd heard this before. Too many times. The valet took our 15-year-old sedan with a barely concealed smirk as we walked into the restaurant's marble foyer. The maitre d' guided us to a private room where my father already sat at the head of a table set for 8. "Calvin," my father acknowledged with a brief nod before his eyes landed on Noah. The boy's getting tall. It wasn't much, but the fact that he commented on Noah at all gave me a flicker of hope. Maybe tonight really would be different. "Thanks for inviting us, Dad. Happy retirement. 35 years at the firm. Not bad, right?" He straightened his tie, clearly proud. Amanda arranged everything, always knows how to do things properly. I chose to ignore the implied comparison and instead focused on helping Noah into his seat. The place settings looked like something from a magazine, with multiple forks and spoons that made Noah's eyes widen. "Just follow my lead," I whispered, giving his shoulder a reassuring squeeze. The restaurant staff brought water and bread while we waited for Amanda's family to arrive. Noah and I made small talk with my father, though most of his responses were single words or brief phrases. He checked his watch repeatedly. "Sorry, we're late." Amanda's voice carried through the room as she swept in with James and their children. Zach and Emily, both dressed in outfits that probably cost more than my monthly rent, immediately took seats across from Noah. "Traffic was terrible coming from the club," James explained, adjusting his cufflinks. "The kids had tennis lessons." Amanda kissed our father's cheek before taking the seat to his right. "Everything looks perfect. I told you Bellamy's was the right choice." For a few minutes, the conversation flowed pleasantly as we discussed neutral topics. Noah even managed to share a story about his science project that made everyone laugh. The knot in my stomach began to loosen. Perhaps I had been worried for nothing. Then the waiter approached to take our orders. "Oh, we won't need menus," Amanda interrupted before he could hand them out. "I've pre-ordered for everyone to save time. Dad's favorite porterhouse for him, the scallop special for me and James, and the children's filet mignon for Zach and Emily." She smiled at the waiter. "We're celebrating something special tonight." The waiter nodded and turned to Noah and me. "And for you, sir?" Before I could speak, Amanda cut in again. "We didn't order for your son," she said, sliding the bread basket toward Noah. "I wasn't sure if you'd bring him." I felt Noah stiffen beside me as the implication sank in. We had confirmed our attendance 2 weeks ago, specifically mentioning Noah would join us. "You should have packed him something," my father added casually, as if discussing the weather rather than my son going hungry at a family dinner. I saw tears threatening at the corners of Noah's eyes, though he tried to hide them by studying the breadbasket intensely. In that moment, I wanted to grab him and walk out, to shield him from these people who claimed to be family, yet treated him like an unwelcome guest. Instead, I smiled tightly and said, "Noted." The waiter, clearly uncomfortable, promised to return shortly. "Excuse me for a moment," I said, standing. "Noah, I'll be right back." In the hallway outside the private room, I took several deep breaths before approaching the host stand. The anger coursing through me needed to be channeled productively. As I spoke quietly with the restaurant manager, my phone vibrated in my pocket. The message I read changed everything. Returning to the table, I found Amanda regaling everyone with stories from their recent trip to Bermuda. Noah sat silently, occasionally taking small bites from a dinner roll while Zach and Emily described their underwater adventure with a private snorkeling instructor. "The guide said Emily has natural talent in the water," Amanda boasted, patting her daughter's hand. "The instructor usually works with Olympic hopefuls." My father beamed with pride at his grandchildren, not once glancing at Noah, who sat directly across from him. The contrast was painful to watch. "Noah joined the swim team at school," I mentioned during a brief pause. "His coach says he has excellent form." "Public school teams," Amanda said with a dismissive wave. "They'll let anyone join, won't they?" Before I could respond, servers arrived with the pre-ordered meals. The presentation was spectacular as plates were set before everyone except Noah and me. The aroma of perfectly cooked steaks and seafood filled the air. "Calvin, I ordered you the salmon," Amanda said as an afterthought. "I remember you used to like fish." A plate appeared in front of me, but Noah's place remained empty except for the breadbasket. The server looked questioningly at Amanda, who simply shook her head slightly. "The bread should be sufficient for the boy," my father said, already cutting into his steak. "Children need to learn that life doesn't always provide what they want." Noah's shoulders slumped further, but he maintained his composure far better than I could have at his age. "Aren't you hungry, Noah?" Emily asked, making a show of savoring her first bite of steak. "This is so good." "I'm okay," Noah answered quietly. Zach pushed his plate slightly toward Noah. "Want to smell it? It's Wagyu beef. Probably costs more than your dad makes in a day." James at least had the decency to look embarrassed at his son's comment. "Zach, that's not appropriate." "But it's true, isn't it?" Amanda laughed, turning it into a joke rather than a reprimand. "Calvin chose that teaching job. Choices have consequences." My father nodded sagely. "That's what I always tried to teach you both." Amanda understood the lesson. She chose wisely. The subtext was clear to everyone at the table. I had chosen poorly by following my passion rather than pursuing money. And somehow, in their twisted logic, Noah deserved to go hungry because of it. I placed my napkin beside my untouched salmon. "Noah, would you like some of my dinner?" Before Noah could answer, Amanda interjected. "Calvin, don't be dramatic. The bread is fresh, and there's plenty of butter. Besides, we'll have cake later for Dad. Though I'm not sure we ordered enough for everyone," my father added with a pointed look at Noah. Something inside me shifted. The text message I'd received earlier played in my mind, giving me strength. I excused myself again, claiming I needed to call Noah's usual babysitter about a schedule change. Instead, I found our waiter in the service area. After a brief conversation and a substantial tip slipped from my wallet, I returned to the table with renewed purpose. The conversation had moved to my father's retirement plans, which apparently included a month-long cruise with Amanda's family. Noah had given up any pretense of participating and was playing a silent game with his fork and napkin. "Will you take care of the house while we're gone?" Amanda asked me. "Water the plants? Check the mail?" "Of course," I replied smoothly. What are brothers for? My father raised his glass. To my retirement and to Amanda for arranging this perfect evening. Everyone except Noah and me raised their glasses. I noticed Noah watching his cousins eating their expensive meals with undisguised longing. He hadn't eaten since lunch at school, and that had been a simple sandwich. So, Calvin? James began in what seemed like an attempt at inclusivity. How's the teaching going? Still at that same school? Yes, Lincoln Middle. 8 years now. Must be satisfying, he said without conviction. Shaping young minds and all that. It is. Though recently I've been working on something outside of school too. Amanda perked up. Did you finally take my advice about getting a summer job? The country club is always looking for extra wait staff during the busy season. I ignored the condescension in her voice. Not exactly. The waiter returned to check on our meals, and I caught his eye with a subtle nod. He acknowledged it with a professional smile before retreating. Dad, Amanda said, turning the conversation away from me, tell everyone about the house renovation plans. My father launched into detailed descriptions of the updates he planned for our childhood home, including converting my old bedroom into an extension of his hobby room. The fact that Noah and I still visited regularly and stayed in that room during holidays apparently didn't factor into his planning. As dessert arrived for everyone except Noah, I felt my phone buzz again. The confirmation I'd been waiting for. Zach made a show of his chocolate mousse, deliberately angling the presentation toward Noah. This is amazing. Want some, cousin? He held out a spoonful before quickly pulling it back and eating it himself. Oops, too slow. Emily giggled at her brother's cruelty, while Amanda pretended not to notice. My father continued discussing his renovation plans, completely oblivious to or simply unconcerned with his grandson's humiliation. The waiter approached our table again, this time making eye contact with me. It was time. Before we continue with dessert, I said, setting down my napkin, I'd like to make a toast to Dad. Amanda looked pleased at the suggestion, likely assuming I would follow her lead in lavishing praise on our father. I stood, glass in hand, feeling Noah's curious gaze on me. To Thomas Walker, I began, a man who taught me some valuable lessons about family. My father nodded approvingly, unaware of where I was heading. Calvin, wait! A voice called from the entrance of the private dining room. Heads turned to see Diane Russell, my mother's best friend before she passed away 5 years ago. I thought that was you. I wasn't sure if I should interrupt your family dinner. Diane, my father said with obvious discomfort. What a surprise! Amanda's smile tightened. We're having a private celebration, Diane. Perhaps another time would be better for catching up. But Diane had already approached our table, her eyes landing on Noah. Noah, look how you've grown. You have your mother's eyes, you know. Noah smiled genuinely for the first time that evening. Thank you, Mrs. Russell. Calvin, Diane continued, I've been meaning to call you. I found some old photos of your mother that I thought you might want. She always spoke so highly of you, especially after you postponed college to help pay for Amanda's wedding. A charged silence fell over the table. My father shifted uncomfortably, while Amanda suddenly became very interested in her dessert. Calvin did what? James asked, looking between his wife and me. Diane, unaware of the tension she'd created, continued pleasantly. Oh, didn't you know? Calvin gave up his first year at Brown so the family could afford Amanda's wedding. Ellen told me it was $25,000 from his college fund. She was so proud of his sacrifice but felt terrible about it. It was a family decision, my father interjected quickly. Water under the bridge now. And then again, when Ellen was sick, Diane added, placing a hand on Noah's shoulder. Calvin moved back home to care for her in those final months, while juggling his teaching job and caring for little Noah here. Zuchtdevotion. Amanda cleared her throat loudly. Diane, while it's lovely to see you, we really are in the middle of a private celebration. Of course, Diane said, finally sensing the atmosphere. She gave Noah's shoulder a squeeze. I'll call you about those photos, Calvin. As Diane left, an uncomfortable silence settled over the table. Is that true, Dad? Noah asked me quietly. You gave up college for Aunt Amanda's wedding? Before I could answer, my father interjected. It was more complicated than that. Family finances are adult matters, Noah. But it is true, I said calmly. Just like it's true that I paid for Mom's medical expenses during her final year because the insurance Dad provided didn't cover her experimental treatments. Amanda's face flushed. That was your choice, Calvin. No one forced you. No one forced me, I agreed. Just like no one forced you to visit Mom more than twice during her entire illness. But we make our choices, right, Dad? And they have consequences. My father's jaw tightened. This is hardly the time or place for this discussion. When would be a good time? When you're on your cruise? Or when you're converting my bedroom into your hobby room without mentioning it to me first, despite knowing Noah and I stay there during visits? James looked increasingly uncomfortable. Perhaps we should focus on celebrating Thomas's retirement. An excellent suggestion, I agreed, raising my glass again. To my father's retirement and to family loyalty wherever it may be found. A server appeared at my side, discreetly passing me an envelope. Mr. Walker, the information you requested. Thank you, I said, placing it beside my plate. What's that? Amanda asked, her tone suspicious. Just some paperwork, I replied vaguely. Speaking of paperwork, Dad, have you finalized your will yet? You mentioned you were updating it last month. My father's expression darkened. That's private, Calvin. Nothing should be private in a close family, I countered. Amanda seems to know the details. Well, of course I do, Amanda said smugly. I'm helping Dad organize his affairs now that he's retiring. So you're aware that he's planning to leave me only the pocket watch that belonged to our grandfather? The same watch he promised to Noah last Christmas? My father set down his fork with a clatter. How did you find out about that? Dad's lawyer goes to my gym, I explained. Small world. Amanda leaned forward. The distribution is fair based on family contributions. I've been taking care of Dad's needs while you've been focused on your own life. My own life, I repeated. You mean raising my son after losing my wife? Or do you mean supporting myself on a teacher's salary while still managing to contribute to family expenses whenever asked? Calvin, stop being so sensitive, my father said dismissively. Amanda has done well for herself. Her family should benefit from that success. And what about Mom's jewelry? The pieces she specifically wanted Jessica to have, that were meant to be passed to Noah eventually. Amanda touched the pearl necklace she was wearing that had belonged to our mother. These pieces suit me, and Mom would have wanted them to be used rather than sitting in a box somewhere. Besides, Jessica is gone. Noah's head snapped up at the casual mention of his mother. I placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. Noted, I said, echoing my earlier response. The waiter approached again. Is everything satisfactory with your meals? Everything is illuminating, I replied. Could you give us a few more minutes before bringing the check? Once the waiter left, I excused myself again. Noah, I need to make a quick call. Will you be okay for a minute? He nodded, his eyes communicating his trust in me despite the increasingly tense situation. In the hallway, I opened the envelope the server had delivered. Inside were documents confirming what I'd suspected for months. I quickly made a phone call, finalizing arrangements with the restaurant manager before returning to the table. As I approached, I overheard Amanda's voice. Maybe we shouldn't include Calvin and Noah in the family vacation to the lake house this summer. It's awkward having them there with their situation. Their situation? My father asked. You know, Amanda lowered her voice, though not enough. The single dad thing. It brings down the mood. And Noah doesn't really fit in with Zach and Emily's friends from the club. I paused, allowing the full impact of her words to hit me before making my presence known again. Dad, Noah said as I sat down, can we leave soon? Just a little longer, I promised, noticing a fresh wave of servers entering our private room. I think things are about to get interesting. The tension at the table was thick enough to cut with the expensive steak knives Zach and Emily had used for their dinner. Amanda was in the middle of describing the landscaping plans for their summer home when the dessert cart arrived. We've prepared a special assortment of the chef's signature desserts, announced the server with a flourish. But we already have dessert, Amanda protested, gesturing to the half-eaten plates in front of her family members. This is a special offering from the restaurant to celebrate Mr. Walker's retirement, the server explained smoothly, placing elaborate desserts in front of my father, Amanda, James, and their children. Noah watched silently as yet another course was served to everyone but him. His eyes followed the server as he moved around the table, carefully avoiding his empty place setting. Zach took a large bite of his second dessert, then turned to Noah. Too bad you can't have any. It's amazing. Emily giggled. Maybe if you ask really nicely, I'll let you have my leftover crumbs. Children, James said half-heartedly, more embarrassed by their lack of subtlety than their cruelty. "They're just teasing," Amanda said. "Noah needs to develop a thicker skin if he's going to succeed in life. Right, Dad?" My father nodded sagely. "The world doesn't coddle you. Best he learns that early." Noah's eyes dropped to his lap, his small shoulders hunched forward in a posture I recognized all too well. It was the same way he'd sat at his mother's funeral, trying to be brave while falling apart inside. "Noah," I said quietly, "would you like some dessert?" Before he could answer, Amanda cut in. "Calvin, don't be difficult. We didn't include Noah in the dinner plans because we weren't sure you'd bring him. It's not personal." "Not personal?" I repeated, my voice dangerously calm. "My son has sat here watching your children feast on expensive meals while he's offered nothing but bread. How is that not personal?" "You're making a scene," my father hissed. "This is exactly why we sometimes hesitate to include you in family events." A restaurant staff member approached our table, discreetly handing me another envelope. Amanda's eyes narrowed suspiciously as I opened it, reviewed the contents, and tucked it into my jacket pocket. "What was that about?" she demanded. "Just some business I needed to take care of," I replied vaguely. "What kind of business could you possibly have at a restaurant?" My father's tone was dismissive. "Speaking of business," James interjected, perhaps trying to diffuse the tension, "Thomas, have you told Calvin about your plans for the family property?" My father cleared his throat. "I've decided to transfer the lake house to Amanda's name. She has the resources to maintain it properly." The lake house. Our family vacation home for generations. The place where I had taught Noah to fish, where Jessica and I had spent our honeymoon, where my mother had scattered her parents' ashes. "I see," I said, my voice steady despite the betrayal. "And the furniture inside, including Mom's antique desk where she wrote her journals?" "Amanda has better use for those pieces in their new summer home," my father replied. "Your apartment is too small for such furniture anyway." Ah, yes, my small apartment. The one I moved into after selling my house to pay for Mom's medical care when you claimed you couldn't afford to help. A heavy silence fell over the table. "That's not fair, Calvin," Amanda finally said. "You chose to sell your house. No one asked you to do that. Just like no one asked me to cash out my $401K to help Dad avoid foreclosure on his house 3 years ago, the same house he's now leaving entirely to you." My father's face paled. "That was a loan. I intended to pay you back." "When, exactly? Before or after you updated your will to cut me out almost entirely?" James looked at my father, then at his wife. "Thomas borrowed money from Calvin? You never mentioned that, Amanda." "It wasn't a significant amount," my father muttered. I removed a document from my pocket. $145,000 isn't significant? That's what my accountant's records show, plus the $75,000 from Jessica's life insurance that you borrowed for your business troubles. Money that was meant for Noah's college fund." Noah's head snapped up. "Grandpa took Mom's money? My college money?" Amanda reached for her water glass with a slightly trembling hand. "Dad said he needed a small loan. I had no idea it was that much." "Of course you didn't," I said, not believing her for a second. "Just like you had no idea that the initial investment in James's business venture came from my savings, not from Dad as you both claimed." James's expression shifted from confusion to shock. "What are you talking about?" "Thomas provided the seed money for the firm." "Thomas provided $30,000, I clarified. "The other $120,000 came from me, at Thomas's request. He told me it was for medical expenses." "Dad?" Amanda turned to our father, her composure slipping. "Is that true?" My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. He loosened his tie and took several deep breaths. "This is hardly appropriate dinner conversation." "I agree," I said, standing up, "which is why I've arranged for a more appropriate setting to continue this discussion." I nodded to the restaurant manager, who had been waiting discreetly by the door. He entered, followed by several staff members carrying covered serving trays. My father clutched his chest, his breathing becoming labored. "Dad?" Amanda's voice rose in panic. "Are you okay?" "His medication," I said calmly, reaching into my pocket for the emergency nitroglycerin tablets I always carried. "Under the tongue, Dad." "That's it. Deep breaths." The family drama paused, as we all focused on my father's health scare. Even Zach and Emily looked genuinely concerned as their grandfather struggled to regulate his breathing. After a few tense minutes, my father's color improved, and his breathing normalized. "I'm fine," he insisted, though his voice was weaker than before. just got overexcited. During this brief moment of family unity, I caught sight of a text message notification on Amanda's phone, left face up on the table. It confirmed my suspicions about another family secret I hadn't yet revealed. The waiter approached once more. "Is everything all right, sir? Should we call for medical assistance?" "No need," my father replied, embarrassed by the attention. "Just a small episode. I'm perfectly fine now." "Very good, sir. In that case, we're ready to proceed with your special request, Mr. Walker," he said, looking at me. Amanda frowned. "What special request?" I smiled at Noah. "I think it's time for dinner, don't you?" The restaurant staff moved with choreographed precision as they surrounded our table. The maitre d' stepped forward and addressed the group. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to present a special chef's table experience arranged by Mr. Calvin Walker in celebration of this important family occasion." Two servers positioned themselves behind Noah, who looked up in confusion. "For the young gentleman," the maitre d' announced, as the servers simultaneously lifted silver domes to reveal a perfectly prepared steak dinner with all the accompaniments a 10-year-old boy could dream of, including a tower of onion rings and a side of mac and cheese with bacon. Noah's eyes widened in disbelief as the food was placed before him. And to complement the young sir's meal, the maitre d' continued, a tableside preparation of our signature chocolate lava cake, to be ready just as he finishes his entree. A dessert cart appeared with a chef, who began preparing the elaborate dessert right at our table. Amanda's mouth opened and closed several times before she found her voice. "Calvin, what is the meaning of this?" "Dinner," I replied simply. "For my son?" The expressions around the table ranged from Noah's delighted surprise to my father's suspicious glare and Amanda's indignation. "You're making a spectacle," Amanda hissed. "This is embarrassing." "Is it?" I asked, genuinely curious. "More embarrassing than watching your nephew sit hungry while everyone else eats?" Noah tentatively picked up his fork, looking to me for permission. "Go ahead, buddy. Enjoy your dinner." As Noah happily dug into his meal, I stood and addressed the table. I've been patient for years. I've accepted being treated as less than, being excluded from family decisions, watching my son be dismissed and ignored by his own family members. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration, but instead, it became yet another opportunity for you to show exactly where Noah and I stand in this family. "Calvin," my father warned, "this isn't the place." "Actually, it's the perfect place," I countered. "Public settings seem to be the only places where this family behaves with even a veneer of decency." I removed the documents from my pocket and placed them on the table. "These papers show exactly how much money I've contributed to this family over the years. $240,000 to prevent Dad's house from being foreclosed. $75,000 from Jessica's life insurance that was supposed to be for Noah's future. $30,000 for Mom's medical care that insurance wouldn't cover. And let's not forget the $25,000 from my college fund that went to Amanda's wedding." "You're exaggerating," my father insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. "Am I?" I slid the papers toward him. "These are bank statements, loan agreements, and canceled checks. All with your signature, Dad." James picked up one of the documents, his expression darkening as he read it. "Thomas, you told me the startup capital came from your savings." "It was a complicated situation," my father muttered. "What's complicated about lying to your son-in-law about where his business financing came from?" I asked. "Just like there was nothing complicated about taking money meant for your grandson's education." Amanda's children had stopped eating, finally sensing the gravity of the situation. Noah continued to enjoy his meal, though I could tell he was listening intently. "While we're clearing the air," I continued, "let's discuss Mom's jewelry. The pieces she explicitly stated in her will should go to Jessica and eventually to Noah." "The same pieces you're wearing right now, Amanda." Amanda's hand flew to the pearl necklace at her throat. "Mom wanted me to have these. She told me so herself." "That's interesting, considering I have her written will that states otherwise." I produced another document from my inner pocket, along with a letter from her lawyer confirming that the original copy of the will mysteriously disappeared after her death, a copy he wisely kept in his files. My father loosened his tie again. "Calvin, this vindictiveness isn't like you." "It's not vindictiveness, Dad. It's justice. For me, for Noah, and for Mom, whose wishes have been ignored." I turned to Amanda. "And for Jessica, whose memory you've disrespected repeatedly." "I never disrespected Jessica," Amanda protested weakly. "You referred to her death as Calvin's situation," Noah said suddenly, his voice small but steady. My mom dying of cancer isn't a situation. It's the worst thing that ever happened to us." The table fell silent. Noah rarely spoke up in family gatherings, having learned early that his voice carried little weight. "Out of the mouths of babes," I said softly, placing my hand on Noah's shoulder. The waiter approached with champagne. "As requested, sir, for your toast." I nodded my thanks as glasses were distributed to the adults. Noah received a flute of sparkling cider. "Since we're celebrating tonight, I'd like to make an announcement of my own," I said, raising my glass. 3 years ago, I developed an educational app to help my students. What started as a classroom tool has grown significantly. Last month, I finalized the sale of that app to one of the largest educational technology companies in the country. Amanda scoffed. "A teacher making an app? How quaint." "A teacher making an app that just sold for $8.5 million, I corrected. "After taxes, I'll clear about $5 million. Not bad for a public school teacher with a small apartment." The shock around the table was palpable. James nearly choked on his champagne. "You're lying," Amanda said, though uncertainty crept into her voice. I nodded to the maitre d', who presented another envelope. "This is the final contract, signed last week. Noah and I are moving out of our small apartment next month. We've purchased a house not far from here." "But you never said anything," my father stammered. "Why would I asked simply. "When has this family ever shown interest in my accomplishments?" Noah tugged at my sleeve. "Can I tell them about the pool, Dad?" I smiled down at him. "Go ahead, buddy." "Our new house has a pool with a water slide," Noah announced proudly. "And I'm getting a dog. Dad said I could name him whatever I want." The joy in his voice was a stark contrast to his earlier dejection. Zach and Emily exchanged envious glances. "You should have told us," my father said, his tone somewhere between accusatory and wounded. "Like you told me about changing your will, or giving away Mom's jewelry, or using Noah's college fund for your business ventures." Amanda set down her glass with a sharp clink. "This is all very convenient timing, Calvin. If you're so financially secure, why have you been living in that tiny apartment? Driving that old car? Letting Noah wear second-hand clothes? Because money isn't everything, Amanda. Something this family seems to have forgotten." I looked at Noah, who was happily enjoying his dessert, and I wanted to make sure the deal was finalized before making changes to our lifestyle. "So what now?" my father asked. "You've made your point with this theatrical display. What do you want from us?" "Fairness," I replied simply. "Return Mom's jewelry that belongs to Noah. Repay the money you borrowed from us. Honor the promises you made. And if we don't?" Amanda challenged, though her usual confidence was notably absent. I shrugged. "Then Noah and I will build our life without you. He deserves better than to be treated as an afterthought by his own family." James cleared his throat awkwardly. "Calvin, perhaps we could speak privately for a moment?" Surprised by this request, I nodded and followed him to a quiet corner of the room. "I had no idea about the money," he said quietly. "About it coming from you, or about Thomas taking funds from your wife's insurance." "I believe you," I said. And surprisingly, I did. James had always seemed more uncomfortable than malicious during family gatherings. "The truth is," he continued, lowering his voice further, "we're not as financially secure as Amanda makes it seem. The business has been struggling for the past year. The house, the cars, the kids' private schools, all of it is leveraged to the hilt. I've been trying to tell Amanda we need to scale back, but she's determined to maintain appearances, especially around your father." The revelation wasn't entirely surprising, given Amanda's obsession with status, but it explained a lot. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said sincerely. James ran a hand through his hair. "I don't expect your sympathy or help. I just wanted you to know I wasn't part of deliberately misleading you all these years." As we returned to the table, I noticed Noah had finished his meal and was chatting happily with the pastry chef who had prepared his dessert. For the first time that evening, he looked completely at ease. The rest of my family, however, seemed to be in various states of distress. My father looked defeated. Amanda appeared torn between anger and worry, and her children were uncharacteristically subdued. It was time to offer an olive branch, but on my terms. As James and I took our seats, I noticed the dynamic at the table had shifted dramatically. Noah was now the center of attention, confidently describing his science fair project to the chef, while my father, Amanda, and her children watched with newfound interest. "So the volcano actually erupts?" Zach asked, leaning toward his cousin. Yeah, Noah replied. I used baking soda and vinegar with red food coloring. I won first place. That's pretty cool, Zach admitted, sounding genuinely impressed rather than condescending for the first time. Emily turned to her mother. Can I do the science fair this year? Amanda blinked in surprise. But you have your horse riding competitions, sweetie. I can do both, Emily insisted. The chef excused himself, leaving Noah's elaborate dessert presentation in place. The chocolate lava cake oozed perfectly, surrounded by homemade ice cream and fresh berries. It made the pre-ordered desserts look pedestrian in comparison. Noah, my father began awkwardly, that looks like quite the dessert. Your dad really went all out. It's amazing, Noah agreed, taking another bite with evident pleasure. I cleared my throat, drawing everyone's attention. I think it's time we discuss how to move forward as a family. My father straightened, adopting the authoritative posture he'd used throughout my childhood. Calvin, while your financial success is impressive, this confrontational approach— Dad, I interrupted gently but firmly. You're not in charge of this conversation. Not anymore. His mouth snapped shut in surprise. For years, I've allowed this family to dictate the terms of our relationship. I've accepted being treated as less than. I've watched my son be marginalized and ignored by his own relatives. That ends tonight. Amanda's defiant expression had given way to something more complex. So what are you saying? You'll cut us off unless we meet your demands? I'm saying that moving forward, Noah and I will only participate in family relationships that are respectful and equitable. I turned to my father. That means acknowledging the financial debt you owe us, returning the family heirlooms that rightfully belong to Noah, and treating us with the same consideration you show Amanda's family. You want money, my father stated flatly. I want fairness, I corrected. The money is secondary, but yes, repaying what you borrowed would be a start. James cleared his throat. I think that's reasonable, Thomas. Amanda shot her husband a warning look, but he continued. Calvin has been generous with this family for years without recognition. The least we can do is honor our obligations to him and Noah. My father studied his champagne glass, avoiding eye contact. The lake house was supposed to stay in the family. It can, I assured him, but not exclusively in Amanda's branch of the family. Noah has just as much right to his grandmother's legacy as Zach and Emily. We could share it, Noah suggested, looking up from his dessert. Take turns using it. Dad and I only go fishing there a few weeks each year anyway. Out of the mouths of babes, indeed. A timeshare arrangement, James said, nodding. That could work. Amanda didn't look pleased, but she remained silent, perhaps recognizing that her position had weakened considerably. And Mom's jewelry? I prompted. My father sighed deeply. Your mother did want Jessica to have certain pieces. I should have honored that. Amanda reluctantly touched the pearl necklace. I can return this, and the other pieces. Thank you, I said sincerely, feeling the first genuine movement toward reconciliation. As for the financial obligations, I can't repay everything immediately, my father admitted. My retirement savings aren't as substantial as I've led everyone to believe. This confession clearly surprised Amanda, whose eyes widened. We can work out a payment plan, I offered. I'm not looking to cause hardship, just to establish fairness. The waiter approached with another bottle of champagne. Compliments of the house for your celebration, sir. As he poured fresh glasses, I noticed Noah stifling a yawn. It had been a long, emotionally draining evening, especially for a 10-year-old. Before we wrap up this discussion, I said, there's one more thing I'd like to announce. All eyes turned to me expectantly. With part of the proceeds from the app sale, I'm establishing a foundation in Jessica's name. It will provide support to single parents facing medical crises, something we navigated with precious little help. Noah straightened in his chair, pride evident in his expression. It's called the Jessica Walker Foundation. Dad, let me help design the logo. That's wonderful, Calvin, my father said, seeming genuinely moved. Your mother would be proud. Mom would be proud of both of us, I corrected gently, placing my hand on Noah's shoulder. We've looked after each other through some tough times. I'd like to contribute to the foundation, James offered. Professionally, I mean. I have experience setting up nonprofit structures. I'd appreciate that, I said, surprised but pleased by his offer. Amanda studied her children, who were now engaged in animated conversation with Noah about his new house and the dog he planned to adopt. Something in her expression softened. "I have Mom's recipe books," she said quietly, "the handwritten ones with all her notes. Jessica always admired them. Noah should have them." The unexpected gesture caught me off guard. "Thank you, Amanda. That would mean a lot to us." My father raised his glass. "To new beginnings, then, and to family." As everyone raised their glasses, I added, "To Jessica, and to treating each other with the respect and love that family should mean." Noah lifted his sparkling cider. "To Mom." For the first time that evening, perhaps for the first time in years, the toast felt genuine. Something fundamental had shifted in our family dynamic. As we prepared to leave the restaurant, my father pulled me aside. The pocket watch I mentioned in the will. It was my father's. He always said it should go to the man in the family who embodied real success. He paused, looking genuinely contrite. "I was wrong about what success means, Calvin. The watch should go to Noah, as I promised." "He'll treasure it," I assured him. Amanda approached next, her usual confidence subdued. "The lake house? We'll work out a fair arrangement for sharing it." "I appreciate that." She hesitated, then added, "James told me about your conversation, about our financial situation. It's not as dire as he made it sound, but we have overextended ourselves trying to maintain a certain image." "The image isn't worth the reality it costs," I said gently. She nodded, a flicker of understanding crossing her face. "I'm beginning to see that." Noah appeared at my side, stifling another yawn. "Time to head home, buddy," I said, checking my watch. To my surprise, Zach and Emily rushed over to say goodbye to Noah, extracting promises to show them the new house and introducing them to the dog once we got it. As we walked toward the exit, Noah looked up at me. "Dad?" "Yeah. Bud? Are we really going to be okay with Grandpa and Aunt Amanda now?" I considered the question carefully. We're taking steps in the right direction. Real change takes time and effort from everyone involved. He nodded sagely. "I'm glad you stood up for us." "Me too, Noah, me too." Outside in the cool evening air, with the stars spread across the sky, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not because of the money or the vindication, but because I'd finally drawn clear boundaries that would protect both Noah and me going forward. "Dad?" Noah asked, as we waited for the valet to bring our car. "Can we invite everyone to our new house when we move in? Give them another chance?" And there it was, the compassion and wisdom that made him so much like his mother. "Yes," I agreed. "We can give them another chance." 6 months later, our new home buzzed with activity as I put the finishing touches on the backyard barbecue setup. Noah raced through the kitchen with our golden retriever puppy, Max, close on his heels. "Dad, Grandpa just pulled up," Noah called, his face pressed against the front window. "Perfect timing," I replied, adjusting the temperature on the grill. "The burgers are almost ready to start cooking." Our housewarming party coincided with the 6-month anniversary of that fateful dinner at Bellamy's. The changes in our family dynamic since then had been remarkable, though not without occasional challenges. My father arrived first, carrying a housewarming gift wrapped in simple blue paper. His appearance had changed subtly. He had lost some weight, and his posture seemed less rigid than before. "Calvin," he greeted me with a genuine smile. "The place looks wonderful." "Thanks, Dad. Come on in." I accepted the gift, gesturing toward the backyard. "Noah's excited to show you his treehouse. We just finished it last weekend." Noah appeared, now with Max prancing excitedly around his legs. "Grandpa, did you bring your fishing gear?" "Dad set up targets in the backyard so I can practice casting before our trip next month." My father's face lit up at the mention of the fishing trip we had planned to the lake house, the first practical implementation of our new shared arrangement. "It's in the trunk," he confirmed. "And I found my old tackle box with those special lures I told you about." Noah grabbed his grandfather's hand. "Come see my room first." I put up all the model airplanes we built together. As they headed upstairs, the doorbell rang again. Amanda, James, and their children stood on the porch, looking slightly uncertain but bearing gifts and side dishes for the barbecue. "Welcome," I said, stepping aside to let them in. "We're setting up in the backyard." "This is really nice, Calvin," Amanda said, taking in the open floor plan and modern furnishings of our new home. She seemed sincere, without the competitive edge that had characterized our interactions for years. James nodded appreciatively. "The neighborhood is fantastic. Good school district, too." "That was the priority," I confirmed. "Noah starts middle school next year. I want him in the best environment possible. Zach and Emily had already spotted Max and were asking Noah if they could play with him. The children moved to the backyard, their easy camaraderie a stark contrast to their relationship 6 months ago. The Jessica Walker Foundation office is nearly ready, James told me as he helped arrange drinks on the patio table. The legal structure is solid, and we've already received some significant donations besides your initial funding. Thank you for your help with that, I said sincerely. James had proven to be an invaluable resource in navigating the complexities of establishing a nonprofit. It's the least I could do, he replied. After everything. He didn't need to finish the thought. The path to repairing our family relationships hadn't been entirely smooth. There had been difficult conversations, moments of backsliding into old patterns, and occasionally heated disagreements. But with each interaction, we had established new expectations and boundaries. My father had begun repaying his financial debt in monthly installments that respected his fixed retirement income while acknowledging his obligation. Amanda had returned our mother's jewelry, which now sat safely in a display case in my office, waiting until Noah was old enough to appreciate its significance. Perhaps most importantly, Noah was now treated as an equal member of the family, included in all events and conversations in age-appropriate ways. "Calvin," Amanda said, approaching with a photo album. "I found these while cleaning out some storage boxes. There are some great pictures of you and Jessica in here. I thought Noah might want them." I accepted the album, touched by the gesture. "He'll love these. Thank you." She hesitated, then added, "I've been thinking a lot about how I treated you both, especially Noah. I was so caught up in appearances and competition that I lost sight of what family really means." "We're moving forward now," I assured her. "That's what matters." My father joined us on the patio, proudly wearing the world's greatest grandpa apron Noah had given him for his birthday. "Noah tells me he's joining the science club at school. Said something about following in his dad's footsteps with technology. He's got a natural aptitude for it," I agreed, "but I want him to explore whatever interests him." "A good approach," my father nodded. "I wish I'd been more supportive of your choices." As the afternoon progressed, our gathering felt genuinely warm and relaxed. The children played in the yard. The adults conversed without the undercurrent of judgment or competition that had previously defined our interactions, and even Max seemed to sense the positive atmosphere, curling contentedly on the patio among his new extended family. After dinner, as we sat enjoying dessert on the patio, Noah cleared his throat. "I have an announcement," he said with unusual formality. All conversations stopped as everyone turned to him expectantly. "I got the highest score in my class on the state math test," he announced proudly. "Miss Patterson said I might qualify for the advanced program next year." "That's wonderful, Noah," my father exclaimed, beaming with genuine pride. "Good job, dude," Zach said, offering a fist bump. Amanda smiled warmly. "We should celebrate. Maybe we could all go to that new indoor water park next weekend?" "That would be awesome." Noah's face lit up at the suggestion. As the conversation continued, I stepped inside for a moment, needing a quiet second to process the scene before me. Through the kitchen window, I could see my family interacting with authentic warmth and care. Noah was at the center of the group, animated and confident in a way I'd always hoped for but hadn't dared expect within our family context. A framed photo on the counter caught my eye. Jessica holding newborn Noah, her smile radiant despite her illness already advancing. "We did it, Jess," I whispered. "He's going to be okay. We're going to be okay." When I returned to the patio, Noah was explaining the Jessica Walker Foundation to his cousins. "It helps families like me and Dad were before," he explained, "when one parent gets sick and the other parent needs help taking care of everything." "That's really cool," Emily said sincerely. "Maybe I could volunteer when I'm older?" "That would be great," Noah agreed enthusiastically. Amanda caught my eye across the table, a look of understanding passing between us. The foundation wasn't just helping others, it was healing our own family, too. As the evening wound down and goodbyes were exchanged, promises were made for future gatherings without the tension and inequality that had characterized our past interactions. After everyone had left, Noah and I stood side by side in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher. "That was nice," Noah observed. Everyone seemed happy. "They did," I agreed. "What did you think about Aunt Amanda's suggestion for the water park?" Noah considered the question carefully. "I think she's really trying now. Grandpa, too. I think you're right." Dad? His voice took on a more serious tone. I'm glad you stood up for us that night at the restaurant, even though it was scary at first. I placed my hand on his shoulder. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same. Standing up for yourself and for the people you love isn't always easy, but it's always worth it, like Mom did when she was sick. She kept fighting even when it was hard. Exactly like that. Noah nodded, wisdom beyond his years in his expression. I think she'd be happy about how things are now. I think so too, buddy. Later, after Noah had gone to bed, I sat on our back porch with a cup of coffee, reflecting on the journey of the past 6 months. The night at Bellamy's had been a turning point, but the real work had come afterward: daily choices to establish healthy boundaries, to forgive without forgetting, to build new relationships based on mutual respect rather than power dynamics. The financial security from the app sale had given me leverage, but the true transformation had come from finding my voice and using it not just for myself, but for Noah. By refusing to accept the status quo, I had created space for authentic change. Family relationships are complex tapestries woven from love, history, hurt, and hope. Rewiring those threads into healthier patterns takes courage and persistence. It requires both compassion and boundaries, forgiveness and accountability. As I watched the stars emerge in the night sky, I felt profound gratitude for the path we'd traveled. The future stretched before us with new possibilities, not perfect, but fundamentally transformed by the power of standing up for what's right and demanding the respect every person deserves. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who weren't treating you fairly? What gave you the courage to speak up, and how did it change your relationships? Please share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more stories about family transformation, and share with someone who might need encouragement to establish healthy boundaries. Thank you for listening, and remember that true family is built on mutual respect and unconditional love.